Rockingham is seriously pushing to get back on the NASCAR schedule. Honda says they may consider joining NASCAR if IndyCar can't get their costs under control, and things may get uglier between the teams and NASCAR before a new charter agreement is decided. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove on the Go. I'm coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. Just a quick work trip. I should have some cool stuff to share with y'all before long, but we have a ton of NASCAR stories to discuss. Big stories with potentially huge, wide-ranging ramifications that I feel like aren't getting the attention they deserve. Instead, everyone's distracted by, Alex Bowman's flashy new paint scheme. Which, take a look at it. It actually is pretty cool. It's different. They're going with a digital, kind of glitchy effect. I like it. I'm a big fan of purple race cars. The little splashes of pink and blue, I think, are a nice touch. I wasn't a huge fan, honestly, of his 2022 paint scheme, so this is honestly a nice change of pace in my opinion. May not be for everyone, but I like it. New paint scheme reveal got all the attention, but that truly was just a red herring, or a purple herring. Where should we start? Let's start with Rockingham Speedway. Huge story yesterday. The Richmond County Daily Journal reports that there is a serious push to get Rockingham Speedway race ready. NASCAR race ready. Now, you'll remember a couple years ago, after the pandemic, Rockingham Speedway was granted $10 million, or very nearly. They've already used some of that money to repave the facility, add safer barriers in the corners. I visited earlier this year, this past spring, and toured some of the facilities, saw many of these changes up close for myself. But now, local leaders are deciding how the rest of that money should be spent. In this report, the local board of commissioners expressed that they only want the money to be used on things that will actively help bring NASCAR races back to the facility. This quote from Chairman Jeff Smart, who represents the board, made that quite clear. The obvious goal is getting NASCAR back, not only for financial reasons, but for quality of life. Bring it back. Let's bring racing back to the Rock. That's what we are doing this for. The NASCAR Cup Series last raced at Rockingham in 2004. It's been nearly 20 years. The trucks made a brief comeback about a decade ago, but that was short-lived. The track is now independently owned. Again, I visited this past spring. I'll put a link up here in the corner if you want to check that video out, a little history, and also look at present-day Rockingham Speedway if you're interested. As cool as it would be, I'm sure, to see The Rock return to its former glory, I must admit I'm very pessimistic. I think the odds of Rockingham Speedway returning to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule especially are incredibly slim. Firstly, I don't think $10 million, much of which they've already spent, is nearly enough to complete all the necessary renovations. But secondly, on that note, the track is independently owned. I met the owner back in April or May, whatever it was. Did not strike me as a NASCAR guy. Talked to me a lot more about music festivals, multi-purpose entertainment complex. But more than anything, he's not from SMI or ISC. Again, it's an independently owned track. It would have to replace an existing date on the schedule. And there are a few independent venues still out there, but most tracks on the schedule now are owned either by NASCAR themselves or by SMI, who NASCAR has a strong partnership with. So I don't see either company willingly giving up one of their dates for an independent track. And then thirdly, and this one may be a bit more controversial, but as much history as The Rock contains, it's a rural, small market track, not far from Charlotte, not far from Darlington, honestly not far from North Wilkesboro. And keep in mind, North Wilkesboro, as much hype as that got this past year, that was a TV ratings loss. I'm sure fans would pack the grandstands, but let's be honest, TV money is what makes the sport go around these days. Call me pessimistic if you want, but I think there is a very slim chance the NASCAR Cup Series ever returns to Rockingham Speedway. I'd go on record and say there is zero chance it happens in the next 3 or 4 years. No chance the Cup Series goes back to Rockingham anytime soon. Xfinity or trucks, yeah, I'll leave that open. Sure, potentially, who knows? But the Cup Series, you guys can bookmark this. Old takes exposed if I'm wrong, but I think there is zero chance it happens anytime soon. I hate being so pessimistic. Let's change the subject, talk about a different story. This story is also kind of a downer, honestly, if you're an American motorsports fan. Racer.com's Marshall Pruitt is reporting that Honda may look to leave IndyCar once their agreement is up in 2026. American Honda Motorsports manager Chuck Shifsky was extremely open and honest about Honda's future in IndyCar, telling Racer.com, quote, "We have great concerns over the costs. If we were to choose not to renew, that would be the reason why. And it's easy to see. We don't have a third manufacturer, and there's a reason for that. It has to do with the cost. If the return of investment matched up with the investment, we'd have a number of other manufacturers involved." I know this is not an IndyCar show, but some important background information. Earlier this week, IndyCar announced the delay of the new hybrid engine package. I think this is the second or third time it's been delayed. They're still optimistic, though, that once that new system is put into place, new manufacturers will be interested, and existing manufacturers, Honda and Chevrolet, will be very happy with the results. It's also important to note that Honda has an agreement with IndyCar through 2026, but it's very interesting that they're now floating this out there publicly, that they could consider leaving if the sport's too expensive. Eric, how does NASCAR fit into this? Well, that Chuck Shifsky character I mentioned a moment ago, who represents Honda, he mentioned NASCAR by name as a series Honda could potentially be interested in joining. He said, quote, "We're looking for a wholesale change to the IndyCar engine regulations so that we can eliminate fives and tens of millions of dollars of annual technical costs. Because if we don't, then it's too much money and we will go do something else. That something else could be NASCAR, or a further investment in our Formula One effort, or something that isn't motorsports at all." So I know his quote is still very open-ended, but the reason I'm bringing this up on a NASCAR show is because I don't recall a time in recent memory where a representative from a non-NASCAR manufacturer publicly acknowledged that racing in NASCAR could be a real possibility one day. Remember, a couple of years ago, it was NASCAR teasing, Dodge. We've talked to Dodge. Dodge may be interested. We never heard that from Dodge. This quote that I just read you is coming directly from a Honda Motorsports representative. So obviously it doesn't mean a whole lot because we're talking about 2, 3, 4 years from now. And he even mentions there that, F1, something else. Like NASCAR is not the only possibility they'd consider, but it's still interesting that he mentioned NASCAR by name. I don't want to see Honda leave IndyCar, and I think that is still unlikely. A lot is going to change over the next couple of years to hopefully make that sport healthier. But I also would love to see Honda in NASCAR. More manufacturers, more money, more teams, more drivers getting opportunities. I think that'd be a great thing. I guess I'd like to have my cake and eat it too. I'm not sure that's realistic. Interesting quote there. Nonetheless, I just wanted to share it with you guys. One more big story. On the plane ride out here, I was listening to The Money Lap, Parker Kligerman and Landon Castle's podcast. They did a live show recently, and Adam Stern, reporter for Sports Business Journal, was a guest on their show. And during his segment, Stern suggested that the teams have discussed publicly showing their displeasure with NASCAR during a NASCAR race. Background information, NASCAR and the teams are still negotiating a new charter agreement. The current agreement expires at the end of 2024, about 12 months from now. The two sides must reach a new agreement before then, and I think it's safe to say tensions are still running a bit high, even though NASCAR just signed a $7.7 billion TV agreement. That also begins after 2024. I'll play a clip in a moment, but on the Money Lap podcast, Adam Stern suggests that negotiations between NASCAR and the teams could go on well into the 2024 season, leaving the door open for race teams to stage demonstrations during NASCAR Cup Series events.
If a deal doesn't get done by Daytona, well, on one hand, it's fine because the next deal for the charter agreements and the media rights don't start till 2025, but that'll start opening up the opportunity for teams to, potentially pull stunts on the track. There's been rumblings about things like that. Nothing's happened. There's been rumblings about teams, somehow show their displeasure to NASCAR during a race.
Shout out to the Money Lap podcast. It was a real fun listen. Made my plane ride go by a lot faster. I'll link that full episode down in the description below. But my gosh, pulling stunts on track? There have been rumblings already? Whoa! I don't want to sound too alarmist. Adam Stern himself concludes that it's very unlikely that the teams will do anything crazy, at least on the track. If anything, they will continue to apply public pressure through the media, which, in my opinion, is probably the smartest way to go about it if you're going to do something like that. Not to say the court of public opinion matters a ton, but it does matter. And right now, the teams are winning in the court of public opinion. Most fans are siding with the teams over NASCAR. NASCAR is the greedy corporate entity. The teams are the ones putting on the show, and they've been losing money. NASCAR needs to fix that. If the teams were to, and I'm just spitballing here, boycott a race weekend, I know that would be drastic. Maybe they were collectively would all start and park during a race. If the teams were to do something wild, the fans would revolt. The court of public opinion would no longer be in the team's favor. I think fans would just revolt on the whole system. They'd be mad at the teams, mad at NASCAR, and it would severely damage the industry, to say the least. The race teams are the stars. They do have that leverage. But another great point that was brought up on that episode of the Money Lap, NASCAR has a ton of leverage too. They've got 75 years of history. They're a legit brand. They just managed to get over $1 billion annually from their TV partners, despite facing a crowded sports landscape, despite an uncertain economy, despite the fact that NASCAR's TV ratings continue to be near their all-time low. NASCAR may need the teams and the stars to make this sport what it is, but don't get it twisted. The teams also need NASCAR badly. So I don't know where negotiations will go from here. Hopefully things don't get too ugly or too public. Hopefully both sides are able to come to an agreement sooner rather than later, but at this point I'm not getting my hopes up. Everything seems to be months behind schedule, but at least we got the TV agreement, the media rights deal settled. That was a huge headache. Slowly but surely checking things off the to-do list. I know we covered a ton here, but let me know what you're thinking down in the comment section below. If the race teams were to pull some sort of public stunt to get NASCAR's attention, what do you think they would try? Don't give them too many ideas now, but get creative. What could that look like? Anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day, even when I'm on the road. The grind never stops, and a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Got some different content coming your way here very soon. That's part of why I'm out of town right now. So I hope you look forward to that. I will see you all again very, very soon. Take it easy, y'all.